Introduction: The Great Lie of Feeling Like It and the Graveyard of Potential. Look at your life right now. Take a brutal, unfiltered, entirely objective look at your current reality. Look at the goals you set on January 1st. Look at the business you said you were going to start, the physical shape you promised yourself you would achieve, the languages you swore you were going to learn, the financial independence you told yourself was just around the corner. How much of it is actually done? If you are like the vast, overwhelming majority of the human population, the answer to that question is a profound, uncomfortable, and deeply shameful silence. You have notebooks filled with grand, sweeping plans. You have vision boards plastered with pictures of the life you want. You have watched hundreds of hours of inspirational videos, listened to high-energy podcasts, and pumped yourself up with the intoxicating idea of becoming a titan, a conqueror of your own life. You have the knowledge, you have the resources, and yet, day after day, you wake up, you look at the cold, hard work that actually needs to be done, and you whisper the 5 most destructive words in the English language. I don't feel like it. You tell yourself you will do it tomorrow when you are more rested. You will do it next week when the conditions are perfect, when your schedule clears up, when the stars align. You are waiting for a magical, invisible force to descend from the sky, fill your chest with an inextinguishable fire, and effortlessly push you into action. You are waiting for motivation. This audiobook is here to tell you a brutal, unforgiving, and deeply liberating truth. Motivation is a myth. Motivation is a scam. Motivation is a cognitive illusion engineered to keep you weak. Motivation is an unreliable, fleeting, emotional weather pattern, and if you build the architecture of your life, your career, and your future upon the shifting sands of how you feel, your life will inevitably collapse into a graveyard of unfulfilled potential. Think about it logically. What exactly is motivation? It is an emotion, and like all emotions, happiness, sadness, anger, lust, grief, it is entirely temporary. It is biologically impossible for the human brain to sustain a state of high arousal motivation for long periods. It is a chemical spike, a rush of neurotransmitters designed by evolution to initiate action in short bursts, not to sustain long-term grinding effort over decades. Amateurs wait for the emotion to strike before they act. They sit at the bottom of the mountain, staring at the peak, waiting for a feeling of inspiration to magically carry them to the top. They are slaves to their own internal chemistry. If they wake up feeling sad, they do nothing. If they wake up feeling tired, they do nothing. Their entire existence is dictated by the whims of their biology. Masters operate on a completely different paradigm. Masters do not care how they feel. They understand that their internal emotional state is entirely, profoundly irrelevant to the execution of their daily duties. They do not rely on motivation. They rely on the cold, unyielding, unforgiving iron of discipline. Discipline is the ultimate human superpower. It is the ability to do what you absolutely hate to do, but to execute it as if you love it. It is the psychological capacity to sever the link between your feelings and your actions. It is the ability to look at a task that terrifies you, a task that bores you to tears, a task that makes your muscles ache, and say, "My feelings do not dictate my reality. My will dictates my reality." In this extensive, uncompromising masterclass, we are going to violently dismantle the illusion of motivation. We will strip away the fluffy, feel-good self-help rhetoric that has poisoned modern society, and we will examine the raw, cold neurology of habit formation. You will learn how the modern world has systematically hijacked your dopamine receptors and exactly how you can hijack them back. You will learn why setting massive goals is a strategy for losers, and why building relentless, unbreakable systems is the only mathematical guarantee of success. You will discover the cutting-edge neuroscience of the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, the actual physical engine of willpower in your brain, and how to grow it like a muscle. You will learn how to weaponize your physical environment to make failure difficult and success automatic. You will learn the psychological failure protocol, and you will confront the brutal social cost of discipline, how to survive when your friends and family try to drag you back down to mediocrity. If you are looking for a gentle, soothing voice to tell you that you're doing your best, that you are perfectly fine the way you are, and that success should be easy and fun, turn this audio off right now. Go back to sleep. But if you are tired of being a slave of your own fleeting moods, if you are nauseated by the sight of your own excuses, if you are tired of watching your boundless potential rot away year after year, and if you are finally ready to forge a mind of unbreakable, tempered steel, then listen closely. It is time to kill the illusion. It is time to forget motivation. It is time to build discipline.
Chapter 1: The Dopamine Trap and the Neurobiology of the Grind. To defeat the enemy, you must first understand its biology. You cannot fight a war if you do not understand the terrain. Why is discipline so painfully, agonizingly difficult? Why is it so effortless to sit on a couch staring at a glowing rectangle and scroll through social media for 4 hours, but sitting down to write a crucial business proposal for 30 minutes feels like physical torture? Why does eating a piece of chocolate cake require 0 effort, but going for a 3-mile run in the rain requires a monumental exertion of will? It is not because you are inherently lazy. It is not because you were born with a defective character or weak genetics. It is because your brain is functioning exactly, perfectly the way evolution designed it to function. You are operating a million-year-old piece of biological hardware in a hyper-modern 21st century world, and the hardware is experiencing a catastrophic glitch. The illusion of pleasure, understanding dopamine. Deep inside the basal ganglia of your brain operates a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is perhaps the most misunderstood chemical in modern psychology. It is frequently labeled by the media as the pleasure chemical or the reward chemical. It is not. Dopamine is the desire chemical. It is the molecule of motivation, of craving, of pursuit. Dopamine is not released primarily when you achieve a goal. It is released in massive quantities when your brain anticipates a reward. Its evolutionary purpose is to drive you to take physical action to secure that reward. For our ancient hunter-gatherer ancestors, dopamine was the key to survival. It was released when they saw a fruit tree miles in the distance, or when they found the tracks of an animal. That spike in dopamine motivated them to expend massive, exhausting amounts of physical energy to track the animal or climb the tree. The reward, calories, survival, was incredibly high, but the effort required to get it was also brutally high. The system was perfectly balanced. High effort equaled high reward. Welcome to the 21st century. The balance has been shattered. You live in an environment engineered by thousands of brilliant neuroscientists, software developers, and multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerates, all specifically designed to ruthlessly hijack your dopamine system. You are surrounded by super stimuli. When you open a social media app and see a red notification badge, when you bite into highly processed, hyper-palatable junk food engineered with perfect ratios of salt and sugar, or when you play a video game, your brain receives a massive, unnatural, explosive spike of dopamine, and, crucially, lethally, it receives this spike for doing absolutely zero work. We call this cheap dopamine. It is the neurochemical equivalent of counterfeit money. The down-regulation disaster. When you flood your brain with cheap dopamine all day long, from the moment you check your phone in bed to the moment you fall asleep watching a streaming service, your brain reacts defensively. The brain seeks homeostasis or balance. When it is constantly bombarded with unnatural spikes of dopamine, it protects itself by down-regulating your dopamine receptors. It literally reduces the number of receptors available to process the chemical. Your brain becomes numb. It adjusts to this massive, unearned, artificial stimulation as the new, normal baseline. Now, look at what happens when you attempt to execute discipline. Look at what happens when you try to do something genuinely hard. You sit down to read a dense educational book on finance. You put on your shoes to go for a grueling hour-long run. You open a blank document to write code. These activities require immense cognitive or physical effort, and the reward, getting smarter, getting fitter, building wealth, is delayed months, years, or even decades into the future. Your numb, overloaded, cheap dopamine-addicted brain looks at this high-effort, incredibly delayed reward activity and essentially says, "Are you out of your mind? Why would I expend precious energy on this painful task? I can get 1,000 times more dopamine right this second with zero effort just by reaching into my pocket and opening a screen." Your brain literally triggers an intense feeling of boredom, physical resistance, brain fog, and severe fatigue to actively stop you from doing the hard work. This is the cold, biological reality of not feeling motivated. It is not a moral failing. It is a chemical addiction. Your brain is rationally choosing cheap, immediate gratification over expensive, delayed greatness. Practice Application 1, the 48-hour neurochemical hard reset. To build unbreakable discipline, the very first step is not adding more work to your plate. You cannot force a broken machine to run faster. The first step is subtraction. You must reset your neurological baseline. You must violently starve the cheap dopamine. Amateurs try to build discipline while simultaneously maintaining a diet of constant high-arousal distraction. They try to study while their phone buzzes every 3 minutes. They try to diet while keeping a pantry full of sugar. It's like driving a high-performance car with the parking brake fully engaged. You will burn out your engine in a matter of days. If you want the motivation to do hard things, you must make the hard things the most stimulating part of your day. If you are chronically undisciplined, if you can't focus for more than 10 minutes without checking a screen, you need a hard reset. Starting tomorrow morning, for the next 48 hours, you will execute a total dopamine fast.
Here are the unbreakable rules of the protocol. Absolute digital blackout. No social media of any kind. Delete the apps from your phone entirely. You will not die without them for 2 days. No artificial entertainment. No streaming services, no television, no movies, no YouTube. No gaming. 0 video games. No hyper-palatable food. No processed sugar, no junk food, no alcohol, no artificial sweeteners. You will eat single-ingredient whole foods only. No artificial audio, no music, no podcasts, no audiobooks while walking, driving, or working out. You will exist in silence. For 48 hours, you are allowed to do only the following: work on your primary goals, exercise, read physical books, drink water, eat clean food, converse face-to-face with human beings, and sleep. The first 12 hours will be excruciatingly agonizing. You will feel phantom vibrations in your pocket. Your brain will scream at you for stimulation, like an addict begging for a hit. You will feel an intense, crushing, suffocating boredom. Your mind will invent brilliant, logical-sounding excuses for why you need to check your email just for a second. Let the boredom crush you. Tolerate the void. Sit in the silence. By the end of the 48 hours, something miraculous will begin to happen in your neurochemistry.
Because your brain has been starved of the cheap, hyper-stimulating junk, its down-regulated receptors will begin to sensitize. They will become hungry again. Suddenly, the idea of reading a dense book will seem highly engaging. The idea of going for a long walk in silence will feel stimulating. The difficult, grueling work you have been avoiding for months will suddenly appear manageable, simply because your brain is finally starved enough to be willing to work for its dopamine. You cannot build an iron mind on a foundation of cheap pleasure. You must starve the distraction to feed the focus. Chapter 2. The Anatomy of Willpower. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Now that we have cleared the static of cheap dopamine, we must look at the actual engine of discipline itself. For decades, scientists debated whether willpower was a finite resource, a psychological illusion, or a physical mechanism in the brain. Recent breakthroughs in neuroscience have provided a terrifyingly clear answer. Willpower is not a concept. It is a physical location in your skull. Deep within the brain lies a structure called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or the AMCC. The AMCC is the neurological hub of tenacity. It is the center of the grind. Neuroscientists studying elite athletes, superagers, people who maintain incredible cognitive function into their 90s, and people who have overcome massive adversity have found something incredible. Their anterior mid-cingulate cortex is physically larger and more dense than the average person's. Conversely, when scientists look at the brains of obese individuals who chronically fail diets or individuals suffering from severe apathy, their AMCC is visibly shrunken and underdeveloped. But here is the most important, life-altering fact about the AMCC. It functions exactly like a skeletal muscle. It grows when it is subjected to resistance, and it atrophies when it is coddled. The neuroscience of the suck. How do you make the AMCC grow? You cannot grow it by doing things you enjoy. If you love going to the gym and lifting weights, going to the gym does not build your AMCC. It builds your biceps, but because the act of going to the gym is enjoyable to you, it requires no willpower. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex only grows when you force yourself to do something that you do not want to do. It grows when your alarm goes off at 4:30 a.m. It's freezing cold. Your bed is incredibly warm. Every fiber of your being wants to sleep, and you force yourself to throw off the covers and stand up anyway. In that exact millisecond of intense internal resistance, when the friction is highest, the AMCC activates, fires, and physically fortifies itself. It grows when you're staring at a piece of chocolate cake, your mouth is watering, your dopamine receptors are begging you to take a bite, and you forcefully say no and walk away. Every single time you embrace the suck, every time you do the hard thing simply because it's hard, you are literally adding neurological mass to your brain's willpower center. But the blade swings both ways. Every time you hit the snooze button, every time you skip the workout, every time you choose comfort over friction, your AMCC physically shrinks. You are not just making a bad choice in the moment, you are biologically weakening your capacity to make a good choice tomorrow. Practice application 2. The daily micro-suffer. To build unbreakable discipline, you cannot rely entirely on your massive overarching goals to train your AMCC. You must introduce controlled, voluntary hardship into your life every day, specifically designed to trigger resistance. You must execute a daily micro-suffer. This is a task that serves no purpose other than to be highly uncomfortable and intensely undesirable. It is a daily workout for your AMCC. Tomorrow morning, you will take a freezing cold shower. Not a lukewarm shower, not a hot shower that you turn cold for the last 10 seconds. You will turn the dial to the coldest possible setting before you step in. You will stand outside the stream of water. Your brain will begin to panic. You will hear the excuses forming in your head. It's too cold today. I might get sick. I'll do it tomorrow. This is stupid. Recognize that voice. That is the voice of weakness. That is the voice of an atrophied AMCC. Look at the water, embrace the absolute dread, and step directly into the freezing stream. Your breath will catch, your body will go into shock, your mind will scream at you to step out. Do not move. Control your breathing. Force your mind to dominate your physical panic. Stand there for 2 full minutes. You are not doing this because cold water has magical fat-burning properties. You are doing it because stepping into that water when you desperately don't want to is a pure, unadulterated act of supreme discipline. When you start your day by voluntarily stepping into the fire, by conquering your own primal panic, the rest of the day becomes effortless. A difficult email, a rude client, a complex spreadsheet. These things will no longer faze you. You have already won the hardest battle of the day. You have fortified the engine.
Chapter 3. The Architecture of Winners. Systems over Goals. We have cleared the neurochemical static, and we understand the biology of willpower. Now we must build the external structure of your life. If you walk into any bookstore and browse the self-help section, you will be violently assaulted by the same repetitive, tired advice. Set massive goals. Dream big. Visualize your success. Write your goals on your mirror so you see them every day. I want to lose 50 pounds of fat. I want to build a company that generates $1 million in revenue. I want to write a best-selling novel. Here is a harsh, mathematical, undeniable reality that shatters the self-help industry. Losers and winners have the exact same goals. Think about it. Every single athlete who enters the Olympic Games has the exact same goal: to win the gold medal. The goal does not differentiate the champion who stands on the podium from the athlete who finishes in last place and goes home empty-handed. The goal is completely irrelevant to the outcome. The goal is merely the direction on the compass. What differentiates the victor from the vanquished is the architecture beneath the goal. The winner does not obsess over the gold medal. The winner obsesses over the system. A goal is a desired outcome. A system is the relentless collection of daily habits, processes, rules, and routines that mathematically guarantee that outcome over a long enough timeline. The mirage of the finish line. The psychological problem with being goal-oriented is that it places your happiness, your success, and your identity entirely in the future. If your goal is to lose 50 pounds, you exist in a continuous state of failure until the day you finally hit that number on the scale. For months you feel inadequate, and when you finally do hit the goal, the satisfaction is incredibly fleeting. You celebrate for an hour, take a picture, and then a profound emptiness sets in. You look in the mirror and ask, "What next?" Because you were only motivated by the goal. The moment the goal is achieved, the motivation vanishes and you instantly regain the weight. Furthermore, goals rely entirely on motivation. When your goal of building a massive business is 5 years away, it is incredibly easy to skip working on it today. Your brain logically calculates, missing one single day of work won't ruin a 5-year plan. I'll just double down tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. The goal is a mirage that allows for infinite procrastination.
Systems-oriented thinking destroys this trap entirely. When you build a system, you are not focused on losing 50 pounds in a year. You completely detach your mind from the future. You become hyper-focused on executing the specific, granular set of actions required today. Your system is, I will consume exactly 2,000 calories comprised of 180 grams of protein and whole vegetables, and I will lift heavy weights for 45 minutes at 6 a.m. When you shift your focus to the system, the psychology flips. You win every single day. If you execute the system today, you are a success today. You get the psychological hit of victory immediately. The 50 pounds of fat loss is no longer a monumental, terrifying, insurmountable mountain to climb. It is simply the inevitable mathematical byproduct of running your daily system 180 times in a row. The law of the lead measure versus lag measure. To build an unbreakable system, you must understand the critical difference between a lag measure and a lead measure. A lag measure is the result. Your body weight on the scale is a lag measure. The amount of money in your bank account is a lag measure. The number of subscribers on your channel is a lag measure. By the time you look at a lag measure, the behavior that caused it is already in the past. You cannot change it. You cannot influence it. You can only react to it. Most people obsess over lag measures. They weigh themselves every single day, see the number hasn't changed, get deeply depressed, lose their motivation, and quit. A lead measure is the behavior. It is the input. It is the lever you actually pull. It is the exact number of calories you eat today. It is the specific number of cold calls you make to potential clients before noon. It is the number of words you write on your manuscript before breakfast. Lead measures are entirely 100% within your control. They are the gears of your machine. To build unbreakable discipline, you must completely detach your ego and your emotions from the lag measure and become fiercely, ruthlessly, almost psychotically obsessed with executing the lead measure. If you are an author, do not obsess over selling 1 million books. You cannot control the publishing market. You cannot control the readers. You can only control the lead measure, chaining yourself to a chair and producing 1,000 words every single day, rain or shine, sickness or health, no matter how bad those words might be. Practice Application 3. The System Blueprint and the 100 Rep Rule. Identify your biggest, most ambitious current goal. Look at it. Now mentally throw it in the trash. Stop looking at the peak of the mountain. Write down the absolute minimum daily lead measure required to guarantee that goal over a 5-year timeline. Crucially, do not make the lead measure massive. Amateurs rely on massive bursts of intense but ultimately unsustainable effort. They work 16 hours a day for a week, burn out, and quit for a month. Masters rely on small, daily, unbreakable consistency. The magic is in the monotony. If you're an author, do not obsess over selling 1 million books. You cannot control the publishing market. You cannot control the readers. You can only control the lead measure, chaining yourself to a chair and producing 1,000 words every single day, rain or shine, sickness or health, no matter how bad those words might be. Practice Application 3. The System Blueprint and the 100 Rep Rule. Identify your biggest, most ambitious current goal. Look at it. Now mentally throw it in the trash. Stop looking at the peak of the mountain. Write down the absolute minimum daily lead measure required to guarantee that goal over a 5-year timeline. Crucially, do not make the lead measure massive. Amateurs rely on massive bursts of intense but ultimately unsustainable effort. They work 16 hours a day for a week, burn out, and quit for a month. Masters rely on small, daily, unbreakable consistency. The magic is in the monotony. If you're an author, do not obsess over selling 1 million books. You cannot control the publishing market. You cannot control the readers. You can only control the lead measure, chaining yourself to a chair and producing 1,000 words every single day, rain or shine, sickness or health, no matter how bad those words might be. Practice application 3, the system blueprint and the 100 rep rule. Identify your biggest, most ambitious current goal. Look at it. Now mentally throw it in the trash. Stop looking at the peak of the mountain. Write down the absolute minimum daily lead measure required to guarantee that goal over a 5-year timeline. Crucially, do not make the lead measure massive. Amateurs rely on massive bursts of intense but ultimately unsustainable effort. They work 16 hours a day for a week, burn out, and quit for a month. Masters rely on small, daily, unbreakable consistency. The magic is in the monotony. If you're an author, do not obsess over selling 1 million books. You cannot control the publishing market. You cannot control the readers. You can only control the lead measure, chaining yourself to a chair and producing 1,000 words every single day, rain or shine, sickness or health, no matter how bad those words might be.
Practice application 3, the system blueprint and the 100 rep rule. Identify your biggest, most ambitious current goal. Look at it. Now, mentally throw it in the trash. Stop looking at the peak of the mountain. Write down the absolute minimum daily lead measure required to guarantee that goal over a 5-year timeline. Crucially, do not make the lead measure massive. Amateurs rely on massive bursts of intense, heroic, but ultimately unsustainable effort. They work 16 hours a day for a week, burn out, and quit for a month. Masters rely on small, daily, unbreakable consistency. The magic is in the monotony. If your goal is to build a highly profitable business, your lead measure is not, "I will work 14 hours a day." Your lead measure is, "I will spend exactly 90 minutes of undistracted deep work on revenue-generating activities every single morning before I am allowed to check my email or open my phone." Make the system so simple and the daily requirements so agonizingly clear that the only possible excuse for not doing it is blatant, undeniable cowardice. Then apply the 100 rep rule. Commit to executing this daily system 100 times in a row without evaluating the results. Do not look at the scale, do not look at the bank account, just run the system 100 times. By the time you reach day 100, the results will have taken care of themselves. Chapter 4. The Identity Shift. Assassinating the Old Self. We have mapped the biology and we have built the structural systems, but mechanics and blueprints will eventually break down and rust if they are not powered by the correct internal engine. The engine of all human behavior, the absolute core of who you are, is your identity. The biggest, most catastrophic mistake people make when trying to build discipline is treating it as a purely external action that they are temporarily trying on, like a jacket. They say things like, "I am a lazy person, but today I am going to try to force myself to go to the gym." They say, "I am a terrible procrastinator, but this week I am going to try to wake up early." Listen to the language. Their internal identity is firmly established as lazy or procrastinator. Their external action is gym or waking up early. When your external actions directly conflict with your deeply held internal identity, your brain experiences immense cognitive dissonance. It feels wrong. It feels unnatural. It feels like you are acting out of character, wearing a mask that doesn't fit. And human beings will always, inevitably, ultimately revert to the behaviors that match their internal self-image. Your willpower is finite. Your identity is infinite. If you rely on willpower to fight your own identity, your identity will win 100% of the time. Consider the classic example of smoking. If you view yourself as a smoker who is trying to quit, every single time someone offers you a cigarette or every time you feel stressed, you have to expend massive amounts of precious willpower to resist the urge.
You have to fight yourself because your identity is still tied to the smoke. You're depriving yourself of something you believe is part of you. But what happens when someone offers a cigarette to a person who has never smoked in their life? It requires absolutely zero willpower for them to refuse. They don't have to clench their fists and grit their teeth. They simply say, "No thanks, I don't smoke." It is not an effort. It is simply a statement of fact. It is a reflection of their identity. To build unbreakable discipline, you cannot merely attempt to change your actions. You must violently assassinate your old identity and forge a completely new one in the fire of action. The evidence of action, voting for the new self. So how do you change your identity? The self-help industry will tell you to stand in front of a mirror every morning, look yourself in the eyes, and chant positive affirmations. I am a disciplined winner. I am a millionaire. I am an athlete. If you are currently overweight, broke, and lazy, and stand in a mirror chanting that you're a disciplined athlete, your brain will reject it. Your brain is a highly logical, evidence-based machine. It demands proof. It knows you're lying to it. Identity is not what you tell yourself you are. Identity is simply the collection of objective evidence you have gathered about yourself over the course of your lifetime. If you wake up late every day, eat junk food, avoid hard conversations, and quit when things get difficult, you have cast thousands of votes over the years, proving to your subconscious mind that you are a weak, undisciplined person. Your brain accepts this evidence as absolute reality. To change the reality, you cannot use words. You must start casting new votes. Every single time you execute your daily system, every time you write the 1,000 words, every time you lift the heavy weight, every time you choose the salad over the sugar, every time you take the freezing cold shower, you are casting a physical, undeniable vote for your new identity. You do not say, "I am trying to run a marathon." You lace up your shoes and run in the rain. You cast enough votes until one day you look in the mirror, the evidence is overwhelming, and you simply say, "I am a runner." You do not say, "I am trying to build a business." You make the cold calls. You cast enough votes until the evidence is undeniable, and your brain accepts the reality, "I am an entrepreneur." The power of "I am not the type of person who." One of the most powerful, highly effective psychological framing tools you can weaponize to protect your new identity is the negative identity statement. When you are faced with a temptation, a moment of weakness, or a friction point that threatens to break your discipline, do not rely on raw willpower. Do not negotiate with the weakness. Do not say, "I really want to sleep in, but I know I shouldn't." The moment you debate it, you have already lost. Instead, weaponize your identity. Frame the refusal not as an issue of desire, but as an issue of character. Say out loud to yourself, "I am not the type of person who hits the snooze button. I am not the type of person who quits when my lungs burn. I am not the type of person who breaks a promise to myself." When you frame the refusal as a matter of fundamental identity rather than a matter of behavioral choice, it completely alters the power dynamic in your brain. You elevate the decision. It is no longer about whether you want to sleep in an extra 10 minutes. It is about whether you are willing to betray your own personal honor and degrade your character.
Practice Application 4. The Identity Contract and the Filter. Take a physical blank sheet of paper and a pen. Write down the exact, unapologetic, highly detailed identity of the person who easily, effortlessly achieves your ultimate life goals. Do not write about what they have. Write about who they are. What exact time does this person wake up? How do they speak to others? How do they stand? How do they react when they lose a major client or suffer a massive setback? What foods do they absolutely refuse to put in their body? Write it out in vivid detail. Now, draw a thick,
hard black line under your past, the lazy, unmotivated, excuse-making, victim mentality version of you died yesterday. You are burying them. From this exact second forward, every single decision you make, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, must pass through the filter of this new identity contract. Before you skip a workout, before you eat the junk food, before you snap angrily at your partner, pause. Ask yourself one simple question. What would the disciplined, elite version of myself do in this exact situation? Then, do not think. Act like that person. Mimic that person's behavior. Cast a vote for that person. Fake the action until the neuroplasticity of your brain physically solidifies the new pathways, and you wake up one day realizing with absolute certainty that you are no longer acting. You have become the weapon. Chapter 5. The Friction Equation. Manipulating the Battlefield. We have rewired the biology, established the systems, and forged the identity. But even the most disciplined soldier will eventually be slaughtered if they are fighting on a battlefield entirely controlled by the enemy. Your environment is your battlefield, and right now, your environment is likely rigged for your failure. A fatal flaw of the amateur is relying entirely on internal willpower to resist external temptation. Willpower, unlike identity, acts like a battery. It depletes continuously throughout the day. Every single decision you make, every frustration you endure in traffic, every annoying email you have to answer, drains the battery. By 8 p.m., your cognitive load is maxed out, and your willpower battery is at zero. This is the exact reason why almost all diets are broken at 9 p.m. on the couch, not at 9 a.m. at the breakfast table. If you keep highly processed junk food in your kitchen cupboards and you rely on your willpower not to eat it after a stressful 10-hour workday, you will eventually, inevitably, lose. The junk food is patient. The junk food has no battery to drain. It does not get tired. It will simply wait in the dark until you are exhausted, your defenses are down, and then it will win. To build unbreakable discipline, you must stop relying on the strength of your mind and start relying on the architecture of your room. You must utilize environmental design. You must manipulate the physical and digital space around you using the friction equation. The physics of human behavior. Human behavior, at its most primal biological level, follows the path of least resistance. We are genetically programmed by evolution to conserve calories and energy whenever possible. Therefore, the friction equation states, if you want to build a positive, disciplined habit, you must drastically, obsessively decrease the friction, the number of steps, the physical effort, the time required between you and the execution of that habit. Conversely, if you want to break a destructive, time-wasting habit, you must drastically, artificially increase the friction required to execute it. Decreasing friction for inevitable success. Let us apply the equation to building discipline. Say your critical lead measure is to wake up at 5 a.m. and run 3 miles before work. If your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and you have to drag yourself out of a warm bed, stumble into a dark closet, search for a clean pair of shorts, dig through a laundry basket for a shirt, locate your running shoes which are in 2 different rooms, and find your headphones, you have introduced 6 distinct points of physical friction. Your sleepy, groggy, willpower-depleted brain will calculate the energy required to complete those 6 steps, decide it is far too much effort, rationalize that sleep is also important for recovery, and you will crawl back under the covers. The master of discipline eliminates all friction the night before, when their willpower is relatively stable. The master lays their running clothes out on the floor directly next to the bed. The shoes are placed together, laces loosened. The headphones are fully charged and sitting on top of the shoes. A glass of water is on the nightstand. When the alarm goes off at 5 a.m., the friction is absolute zero. The path of least resistance is literally to roll out of bed, step directly into the shoes, put on the shirt, and walk out the front door. You do not have to think, you only have to execute. Increasing friction for guaranteed failure. Now apply the exact opposite logic to your destructive vices. You must architect a void around your weaknesses. If your vice is mindlessly scrolling social media on your phone when you are supposed to be doing deep work, having the phone sitting face up on your desk next to your keyboard is zero friction. When a difficult thought process arises and your brain seeks an escape, your hand will reach out and grab the phone automatically, without even a fraction of a second of conscious thought. You must introduce massive, artificial friction to disrupt the automatic loop. When it's time for deep work, you don't just put the phone on silent, you turn the phone completely off. You walk into a completely different room. You place the phone inside a drawer or a lockbox. Now, look at the sequence required to break your discipline. When the subconscious, addictive urge to scroll hits you at your desk, you can't simply flick your thumb. You have to stop working, stand up, walk out of the office, go down the hall, open a drawer, pick up the phone, hold the power button for 3 seconds, and then stand there staring at a blank screen for a full 60 seconds, waiting for the operating system to boot up. You have introduced a massive wall of friction. In the 90 seconds it takes to execute those physical steps, your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, has the time it needs to come back online, recognize that you are acting like an addict breaking your discipline, and allow you to stop the behavior before the screen even turns on.
Practice Application 5, the Ruthless Environment Audit. Look at your immediate physical and digital environment right now. It is perfectly, flawlessly designed to produce the exact results you are currently getting. If you are overweight, your kitchen architecture is designed for obesity. If you are constantly distracted and stressed, your digital workspace and notifications are designed for distraction. You must audit your life like a hostile takeover. The path of grease. Identify the single most important habit you need to build this month. Remove every single barrier, every extra step, every minor annoyance between you and that action. Make doing the hard thing the easiest, most accessible option in your entire house. The wall of thorns. Identify your most destructive, energy-draining, time-wasting habit. Build a wall of brutal friction around it. Delete the apps, unplug the television, throw the junk food in the actual garbage can outside. Make engaging in your vice incredibly annoying, time-consuming, and socially embarrassing to execute. Do not rely on the strength of your mind when you can rely on the architecture of your room. Rig the game. Manipulate the battlefield so that success is the default setting and failure requires exhausting effort. Chapter 6. The Social Cost, Walking the Lonely Path. We have covered the internal mechanics and the external environment, but there is a silent, hidden, and deeply painful variable in the equation of discipline that the self-help gurus rarely warn you about. It is the social cost. When you decide to forge an iron mind, when you decide to assassinate your old identity and hold yourself to an uncompromising standard of excellence, you will inevitably trigger a shockwave in your social circle. You expect your friends, your family, and your colleagues to be thrilled for you. You expect them to cheer you on as you wake up early, stop drinking, start building your business, and lose the weight. You are wrong. In many cases, your newfound discipline will not inspire them. It will deeply, profoundly offend them. The psychology of the crab bucket.
There is a phenomenon known as crab mentality. If you put a single crab in a bucket, it can easily climb out and escape. But if you put a dozen crabs in a bucket, none of them will ever escape. The moment one crab reaches the rim and tries to pull itself to freedom, the other crabs will reach up, grab its legs, and violently pull it back down into the mass. Human beings operate on the exact same psychological principle. When you were undisciplined, lazy, and average, you fit perfectly into your social circle. You shared the same complaints, the same excuses, and the same vices. You made them feel comfortable. But the moment you start practicing fierce discipline, you become a walking, talking mirror that reflects their own inadequacies back at them. When you refuse the alcohol at the party because you have to run at 5 a.m., you are silently reminding them that they lack the willpower to do the same. When you leave the bar early to go work on your business, you are highlighting their complacency. Your pursuit of greatness shines a harsh, unforgiving spotlight on their decision to settle for mediocrity. And human beings hate having their mediocrity exposed. So what do? They act like the crabs. They will try to pull you back down to their level so they can feel comfortable again. They will use subtle mockery. Oh, look at Mr. Dedicated. You can't even have one drink with your friends anymore? You've changed. You're no fun now. They will use faux concern. You're working too hard. You're going to burn out. You need to relax and enjoy life. They will actively sabotage you, ordering junk food to the house when they know you are dieting, or purposefully inviting you out on the nights you need to study. The pruning of the deadwood. To build unbreakable discipline, you must be prepared to face the absolute, undeniable truth. You cannot take everyone with you to the top of the mountain. Some people belong to the version of you that died yesterday. They belong to your past, not your future. If you are surrounded by people who actively mock your ambition, who constantly tempt you to break your systems, and who drain your energy with negativity and excuses, you must ruthlessly prune them from your life. This is the hardest, most painful part of the journey. It requires a different, darker kind of discipline. It requires the discipline to stand completely alone. You must protect your environment and your energy with the ferocity of a guard dog. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you spend your time with 5 undisciplined, complaining, lazy people, you will inevitably become the 6th. If you cannot find a circle of disciplined, ambitious, high-performing individuals to elevate you, then you must choose solitude. Loneliness is the price of admission to the top 1%. You must learn to be your own best ally, your own harshest critic, and your own most dedicated companion. You must learn to thrive in the quiet, empty hours of the early morning when the rest of the world is asleep and the only voice you hear is your own relentless drive. Practice Application 6, the Circle Audit. Audit your social circle with cold, objective detachment. Write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Next to each name, place a plus sign or a minus sign. A plus sign means this person holds you accountable, inspires you to be better, respects your boundaries, and celebrates your discipline. A minus sign means this person enables your bad habits, mocks your ambition, drains your energy, and pulls you toward mediocrity. You must actively, intentionally minimize your contact with the minus signs. You do not need to make a dramatic declaration or start an argument. Simply become unavailable. Be too busy building your empire to participate in their decay. Protect the fortress of your mind. If they are not helping you build it, do not let them inside the gates.
Chapter 7. The Failure Protocol. Autopsy of the Break. We have built a fortress of discipline. We have fortified the biology, engineered the environment, shifted the identity, and pruned the social dead weight. But let us be absolutely perfectly clear. You are a human being. You are not a machine. You are a biological organism subject to stress, fatigue, illness, and grief. There will be a day when the fortress walls are breached. You will experience a massive, unavoidable crisis at work. A family member will fall ill. You will go 3 days without sleep. Or, quite simply, you will have a moment of profound, inexplicable weakness and you will give in. You will eat the entire box of cookies. You will sleep through the 5 a.m. alarm. You will spend 4 hours scrolling on your phone instead of writing the code. You will snap and lose your temper. The streak will break. You will fail. What happens in the exact critical millisecond after you realize you have failed is the most important juncture in the entire architecture of discipline. Amateurs do not understand how to process failure. When an amateur breaks their strict diet on a Tuesday afternoon by eating a single donut, they experience a catastrophic, ego-driven psychological collapse. They throw their hands up in despair and say, "Well, I already ruined the diet for today. I'm a weak failure. I might as well order a whole pizza tonight, skip the gym for the rest of the week, and start over again on Monday." Psychologists call this the "what the hell" effect. It is the all-or-nothing fallacy. It is the fragile ego protecting itself by initiating total self-destruction. The amateur lets a minor, insignificant slip turn into a massive, weeks-long landslide. Masters operate on a completely different framework. They do not rely on perfection. They rely on the failure protocol, the unbreakable law, never miss twice. The master understands that perfection is a dangerous illusion. Consistency is the only valid metric. If a master misses a workout or breaks a diet, they do not beat themselves up. They do not wallow in self-pity. They do not experience guilt. Guilt is a useless, self-indulgent, paralyzing emotion that drains the exact energy required to get back on track. Guilt is for people who want to feel bad without actually changing their behavior. Instead, the master instantly deploys the unbreakable mathematical law of long-term success: never miss twice. Missing one single day of a habit, whether it is eating clean, reading, or running, has mathematically zero impact on your long-term 5-year progress. It is a statistical blip. It does not matter to your body or your business. Missing 2 days in a row is the beginning of a new negative behavioral pattern. 2 missed days is the birth of a bad habit. If you eat a terrible, unhealthy, massive cheat meal, the failure protocol dictates that the very next meal must be flawlessly, perfectly executed. Do not wait for tomorrow morning. Do not wait for the start of a new week. The next immediate opportunity must be a decisive victory. If you skip your morning workout because you are exhausted, the protocol dictates that you absolutely must do some form of physical exertion the next day, even if it is only 10 minutes of push-ups in your living room, just to keep the behavioral chain alive and cast the vote for your identity. The autopsy of failure. Emotional detachment from failure. To execute the failure protocol effectively, you must learn to view your own mistakes with the cold, detached, entirely analytical eye of a scientist observing a failed experiment in a laboratory. When you fail, you do not say, "I am a weak person, I have no discipline." You look at the failure objectively and say, "The system failed. Why did the system fail?" Did you skip the 5 a.m. run because you're lazy? No, you skipped the 5 a.m. run because you stayed up until 1 a.m. watching a movie. The point of failure wasn't the morning run. The point of failure was the lack of a strict evening shutdown routine. Did you eat the junk food because you lacked character? No, you ate the junk food because it was physically present in your house and you were highly stressed from work, depleting your prefrontal cortex. The failure wasn't a lack of willpower. The failure was an environmental design flaw. Perform the autopsy on the break.
Identify the exact friction point that caused the collapse. Adjust the system to ensure that specific, identical failure cannot happen again. Patch the hole in the wall. And then, immediately, aggressively, without a single backward glance of regret, step right back on the path. Practice application 7. Instant forgiveness and the single repetition. If you are listening to this right now and you are currently completely off the path, if you have abandoned your goals for weeks, months, or even years, and you are drowning in the weight of your own unfulfilled promises, listen to me very carefully. The past does not exist. The mistakes of yesterday, the wasted years, the broken diets, the failed businesses, they carry absolutely zero physical weight in the present moment. They are ghosts. You are only carrying them because your ego demands that you punish yourself to prove that you care. Drop the heavy, useless weight. Forgive yourself instantly. You cannot change the past by feeling bad about it. You do not need to do a massive, heroic, 3-hour punishing workout today to make up for lost time. You do not need to work a frantic 20-hour day to catch up. Punishing yourself leads to burnout, which leads to quitting again. You just need to execute one single perfect repetition of your core habit today. Write one paragraph, do one set of push-ups, drink one glass of water, cast one single undeniable vote for the new identity, stop the bleeding, execute the protocol, and swear the oath. Never miss twice.
Conclusion: the ultimate cost and the freedom of the iron mind. You have reached the end of the illusion and the beginning of the reality. We began this journey by destroying the great comforting lie of motivation. We exposed the biological trap of cheap dopamine, the glitch in your neural hardware, and the psychological weakness of waiting until you feel like it. You now understand the hidden architecture of the elite. You know that staring at the peak of the mountain and setting massive goals is a game for dreamers, but building granular, unbreakable, relentless daily systems is the grim, unglamorous work of conquerors. You know how to assassinate your old, comfortable, excuse-making self and how to cast daily, undeniable votes for a new, relentless identity. You know how to manipulate the friction in your environment, rigging the battlefield of your own home to make your success mathematically inevitable and your failure practically impossible. You have learned to look at the fire of discomfort, at the burning in your lungs, the fatigue in your mind, and the crushing weight of the 40% rule, not as a punishment to be avoided, but as the very forge where the iron of your anterior mid-cingulate cortex is hardened and your greatness is manufactured. You understand the heavy, lonely social cost of rising above the crab bucket, and you possess the cold, pragmatic logic of the failure protocol, knowing that perfection is a myth, but consistency, the absolute, non-negotiable refusal to miss twice, is the ultimate weapon of victory. There is a famous, profound quote by the military strategist and former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink. It consists of 3 words: discipline equals freedom. At first glance, to the uninitiated mind, it sounds entirely contradictory. Discipline sounds like the exact opposite of freedom. Discipline sounds like restriction. It sounds like rigid rules, agonizingly early alarms, sweat, pain, and the endless denial of pleasure. It sounds like a self-imposed prison. But look closely, brutally, at the life of the undisciplined person. The undisciplined person is the ultimate slave. They are a slave to their own snooze button, unable to command their own body to arise. They are a slave to the hyper-palatable junk food that makes them lethargic, sick, and weak. They are a slave to the algorithms on their phone, allowing tech companies to steal the most precious hours of their finite lives. They are a slave to their fleeting, chaotic, unpredictable emotions. Because they have absolutely no control over their own mind, they have absolutely no control over their own destiny.
They are a leaf blown around by the wind of their immediate desires. Discipline is the only true freedom that exists in the human experience. When you build an iron mind, you are finally free from the tyranny of your moods. You are free from the crushing anxiety of unfulfilled potential and wasted time. You are free from the opinions and the mediocrity of the crowd. You are free to actually design a life of your own choosing because you possess the supreme, unshakable capability to actually execute the design. You are the master of your vessel. The path of discipline is not easy. Let us be clear, it is incredibly hard. It is lonely, it is quiet, it is rarely glamorous. It is forged in the dark, cold, early hours of the morning when the rest of the world is asleep, dreaming about the things you are actively building. It goes uncelebrated by the masses. There are no cheering crowds for the daily grind, but it is the only path that leads to the summit. It is the only path that leads to self-respect. The next time you wake up and that soft, weak, seductive voice in your head whispers, "It's too early, it's too cold, you worked hard yesterday, I don't feel like it today, let's just do it tomorrow." Do not argue with the voice, do not try to reason with weakness, and absolutely do not go looking for an inspirational video to hype yourself up. Simply acknowledge the voice, smile at its pitiful weakness, anchor your mind, and step directly into the fire. Do the hard work, run the system, cast the vote,